Hi everyone. Sorry about the delay. A few technical difficulties. I hope that you can continue to bear with me as we figure out sometimes these little technical glitches that happen. But I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. And for the third Facebook Skate Happy Q&A with Christine. I hope you had a really good week and were able to try some of the tips and suggestions to becoming more confident and dealing with skating blocks for skills and various fears that you might be dealing with. So today we got some great questions. Sometimes these questions come from a place of, really wanting to learn and know, and they are difficult questions. And sometimes there's not always a really easy answer. With that in mind, I want to discuss today. One of the questions dealt with communication with coaches, with parents, between skater and parent, between skater and coach and parent. That's another big piece of the puzzle that can either cause anxiety, can cause problems with, just confidence in what is my coach thinking, what do they really what are they really thinking of me as a skater and my abilities. So um, most coaches already know that when your skater is feeling scared, they're not it's not that they're just not going for their skills. Coaches often really are very intuitive, and they know that there's a fear there, there's something going on, that it's not just the skater just being lazy. Okay. The coaches see the athletes struggling, they watch them regress, they see them spending a lot of time circling or avoiding a skill. um, Even though the coaches can see that, and they know that there's something causing this, they don't always know or understand what's going on deeper. And there are even some coaches that just become a little impatient and um, don't want to take the time to really learn and know. But for the most part, coaches are great. They put in a lot of time and hours, and they want to help. For a coach, you might have had an athlete who is shaking on the inside and freaking themselves out, but they still manage to go for the skill. I'm always super impressed with those athletes. They're brave and they're courageous. But it also means that they're mentally tough. They are going for the skill even when they're afraid. They have nerves and they have fears, and they still go ahead and do it. It's not that we're never going to have fear, we're never going to have nerves, but it's being able to do the skill and have the nerves and be able to deal with those fears. So if your athlete is dealing with that, or your child, chances are your coach knows about it. And sometimes they spend a lot of time yelling or trying to encourage, or trying all their different ways that we spoke about in a previous episode. But what a coach sometimes, or parent sometimes, or even the athlete themselves sometimes don't understand, that this can really derail a skater when a situation's not being dealt with the right way, and there's no communication going on between the skater to the coach. The coach doesn't know what the skater's really thinking. The skater's just nodding and saying okay, 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 and not sharing. So if your coach also doesn't know that, say you're working on your mental skills and you're working with me or another mental coach, and that coach doesn't know, and you're trying to follow the protocols and the lessons and exercises that you're being given by your mental coach, and it's kind of going against a little bit what the coach wants you to do, that lack of communication can cause extra anxiety and extra stress between coach and student. So if you are trying to implement these tips and tools, or you are working with another coach for your mental mindset, make sure that you have brought the coach in to that decision, that you're keeping the coach on board, in the loop, knowing kind of the skills that you're going to try and work on, different aspects, or at the different place that you're at, and so that there's no miscommunication. And then even the coach can come on board and be part of the solution, part of the problem solving. So that communication is, is super helpful in getting the athlete calmer in a lesson, getting the athlete and the coach on board, so you're both on the same track, working towards a good solution. And if by chance there is some resistance to it by the coach, or you haven't spoken and brought the coach on board and discussed what's going on, either the skater with the coach, or if the skater is younger, the parent and skater with the coach. It's really important that you try and find time to set aside a moment to book a meeting, or grab the coach if you know that they're open to just being grabbed at the end of a session or at some point. Because let's face it, coaches are really busy. And for, some coaches out there, or parents, sometimes it's not easy to speak to a coach. Some are not approachable. So, you need a plan, right? And you also want to support your skater in being a little more independent, and sort of taking responsibility also for their training and their thoughts and their session with the coach. So, this is one big area where, that communication with the coaches can get really overlooked. So we're going to, and cause a lot of unnecessary and really what can be almost paralyzing fear for some skaters. So let's talk about a few strategies about how communication with a coach can be developed. So I like to call these, for young skaters, they're also developing good life skills of being able to talk to their teacher at school, later maybe their boss, or, other people that they need to have good communication to be successful. So some of these strategies we're going to talk about might not work well in every situation. If you're at a club where a coach's attitude is, well, it's my way or the highway, maybe they're not too open to conversation. So, you have a little bit bigger challenge facing you if you have a coach like that. And so these tips will be more for coaches who do seem more open, and maybe you just haven't taken advantage of having a conversation with them yet. So as you might know, communication can be hard, it can be scary, especially for younger skaters talking to an older adult. But again, it's a skill that can be developed, and it's a necessary one, and one that's so important that we help our children, our athletes, our skaters work on. So whether you're talking to your coach now, or you might be talking to a teacher later, or a boss, we need to give our skaters, our kids, the opportunities to learn, to be better communicators and understand how communicating effectively when there's a challenge, to encourage them to build and then utilize these skills. So really, like I said before, we're really giving them and teaching them a life skill when we do this, instead of just taking it, doing it for them all the time. So here are 7 suggestions, tips, on how to communicate with your coach. So all of these ideas can be used to talk to your coach, but also in other times where you need to just communicate. Plan ahead. Number 1, plan ahead. Consider what you want to say, especially if it's emotional, and you know that you're going to get emotional. You want to make sure you've planned ahead, you've planned what you're going to talk about, and how you're going to say it. And also, if it's a little bit older skater, you want them to be comfortable with what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. So you can even practice this out loud, and sort of be in the room with them when they go to talk, if they need that support. You can encourage them, even when they're practicing it, to say it in a mirror. Figure out, is this really what I want to say? Is this how I want to say it to my coach? And will it be received well if I say it like this? So, those are all the things that you want to plan ahead for. Like I said, for depending on the age of your athlete, maybe they can communicate it all. Or if you have a younger athlete, maybe elementary school age, early junior high, maybe you do some of the talking, but you can plan together and prepare together. And, what do you want to have said? This is really important. It will help everyone feel more comfortable going into the situation if there's a plan, if it's been practiced. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's really a good skill, an important skill to have. So the out loud part is very important. If your athlete is older, help them prepare there, but encourage them to do as much of the communicating with the coach on their own. If they need support, you're there. You can stand by quietly and let them do the talking. Let your child know that you support them and you're there for them. And if they're not super comfortable with talking, which a lot of kids aren't, they can even write down something, write it down on paper, and give it to the parent, and then the two of you can verbalize that to the coach, or you can give the letter to the coach and have them read it, and then discuss it if it's uncomfortable to speak. But the main thing in tip number 1 is make sure that you plan ahead. And also, number 2 is consider the timing of your meeting with the coach. As parents, we all know there are better times to talk to us about things, and less ideal times. While we're in the middle of trying to get out of the house and juggling all sorts of details, it's not the best time for a child to bring up a request, or want you to do something for them when you're rushing out of the house. So coaches are the same way. There are times when your coach is probably more likely to be busy and maybe bothered by the interruption, making them late, or and just sort of upsetting their schedule. Then there are times like before practice starts, when they're just at the rink and they're dealing with some details, but they might be a little more open to that drop-by conversation. But you know your coach best, hopefully. And sometimes this can be, it can feel somewhat spontaneous conversation where you go, hey coach, do you have a few minutes? Can we chat? But you've thought it out ahead of time. You've planned what you're going to say. Um, but your coach might be better if, some coaches might be better if you set aside an appointment time. You can send them a text or an email and, just say, can I have 5 minutes of your time after practice? That gives them the opportunity to be prepared as well. Tip number three is make sure you focus on yourself. This is what you can think about as you plan what you want to say in this conversation with your coach. About your fear or your block. As a skater, you want to focus on yourself. What's the problem? What's your problem? And for the content of the conversation, remind your skater, remind your child to stay focused on themselves and their feelings about whatever they're going through. It isn't trying to say that the coach's yelling isn't helpful. We know that. Maybe you can apply that a little bit, but you don't want to say, when you do this, when you do that, I get more scared and more stressed and you're freaking me out. um, you know, Instead of the you statements, we really want to make sure we're using the I statements. I'm really scared of my double flip right now. I'm feeling really freaked out and I worry that I'm going to have a bad fall and get injured. You want to get the coach on your side, compassionate for how you're feeling, not feeling defensive that you're being accusational and blaming. So, you know, tip number 4, highlight what you're doing to work on the issue. Okay, but so as part of that, when you're highlighting what you're doing to work on the issue, hopefully your coach cares and enough to they are encouraged that you're doing things to help yourself, that you're taking the initiative, that you're not just sitting back and blaming the coach, and saying it's all your fault that I'm feeling this way. They may not be thrilled or overly encouraged that you're afraid or freaked out to do the skill, but they will be more encouraged if they know that you're taking steps to try and handle it, to fix it, to be more confident, and you're wanting to bring them into the loop and keep them informed. So for athletes that work with me, this is a very great time to say, to just not say I'm scared, but also to let your coach know that you are working with either me or another mental coach. Really important that that your coach knows this. I would say every coach would be really happy to know that you are working on the skill, that you're working on what it is you're trying to accomplish, not just sitting back and giving up or blaming, as I mentioned before. You can also highlight that as part of your mental training, that I've encouraged you to come up with a plan where you deal with the worries. So sometimes it might take me a little longer to do my jump coach, because my coach wants me to work on my breathing and then maybe do a visualization or whatever other tools that I've given the skater or your mental coach has given your skater to do. So you want your coach knowing that you're actually doing something helpful and not just standing at the boards or socializing or just not even trying, right? You want to let the coach know that you're actually working on a skill that's going to be helpful to get you over whatever issue, fear, block, whatever you're dealing with. So again, communication, right? It really is so important. Number 5, highlight what's helpful from the coach. So in your conversation, remember, you don't want to be saying, don't do this, coach, because it makes me scared, or I don't like that, but highlight what is helpful that the coach is doing. For example, I really appreciate how you've been letting me spend more time on my walkthroughs or my exercises, or letting me go back to single jumps, or taking me in the harness more before I go for the double. It's really helpful, and I feel like it's helping build my courage, build my confidence. So, coaches, if you're listening, if any of your athletes come to you and talk to you like this, you know that they're trying, what they're doing. They are reminding you, I like this, please keep doing it, do more of it, it's helping, right? Number 6, ask for specific help. Again, you know your coach best, and some of my athletes don't feel like they can ask their coaches for specific help. It feels like they're telling the coach how to do their job. So you might not want to utilize this tip if you feel that your coach will be offended. But depending on the relationship, it can help the coach sort of see that you're really wanting to work through it. So if you say something like, it would be really helpful if you would let me spend a little bit more time on my single or the double, or can you give me some more prep exercises to help me feel the takeoff or the landing, or can I have more lessons on the harness until I feel a little more confident? And it's also helpful to remind the coach that you have the same goal, right? We both want to feel confident in that neither of us wants me to continue to have this fear or block. And of course, the last is to thank your coach. And then, make sure that no matter how the conversation has gone, even if it's not gone well or gone the way you thought or wanted it to go, thank the coach for their time and their support. Even if it was emotional, and if there, some big emotional, outbursts or crying or lack of encouragement from the coach, still be gracious and thank the coach for the time. That goes a long, long way. And it leaves everything on a more positive note, so that if you need to reapproach the coach, chances are it may more than likely go a little bit better. They've heard that you have a specific need, and they're inside, they'll be processing that, and maybe they'll think about that on the next lesson and give you more encouragement. So the 7 tips to have good communication with your coach is planning ahead, consider your timing, focus on yourself and what you need, not on what the coach is doing. Highlight what you're doing to work on the issue, highlight what's helpful about what the coach is doing, and ask for specific help. And of course, thank the coach for their time and their encouragement. So that is my suggestions. And again, they may work for you, they may not, but I have found as a coach that these kinds of ways of handling a difficult conversation are really helpful. And as a parent of an elite level athlete and having to go into meetings with coaches, some of these have helped me for sure. We'll go through one more question that I got, and it is a really good question because, we talked about tools to deal with, negative thoughts, and sometimes a lot of people rely on just those positive affirmations, and positive affirmations are terrific, and they help motivate us and help that reframing process of the negative thought. But you have to remember that positive thoughts or positive affirmations of I'm the best, I got this, I can do anything, can sometimes fall a little short and feel a little false or corny or that they're just cheerleading and they're not really changing our beliefs. So when we think about our negative thoughts and using only affirmations, that's often why those negative thoughts keep coming back and they're not really being replaced with more truths. So, if you're probably a person who has very high standards for themselves, who's a perfectionist, it's probably more than likely you're not speaking very kindly to yourself on your inner talk. You probably seek out problems and you're always trying to fix the problems and not also looking at the little wins, the little victories, right? You demand that excellence from yourself. So, when that inner mean girl or bully starts to come out, you go, no, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. And why is this taking so long? And why am I not getting the skill? And on and on and on. I don't know if any of this, any of you can relate to. And if you can, put it in that chat box and share some of that inner talk that maybe you're dealing with. Our brains are wired for negativity. This is the part of the human brain we're wired for negativity because it helps keep us safe. It's our ancient monkey brain that springs into action when we begin to think negatively. It's the warning signal to that monkey brain that it is needed to get us out of trouble and to protect us. And if you know that you're not as good at something or maybe a certain skill, then your brain is going to want to make you very aware of that and even stop you from doing it to keep you safe. It will remind you constantly how scary that double axel or that double flip is. So, good reason that the monkey brain wants to protect you. It doesn't want you to fall, doesn't want you to get hurt or be disappointed, embarrassed, or even disliked for not being good. And in times of real fear and danger, that's a useful instinctive mechanism. But it's not necessary. It's not very useful if you're trying to learn a skill, attempt to jump or perform at a competition. So what can we do to help ourselves be more positive above just telling ourselves the positive affirmations that we want, that we're really good, we can do it, I got this. Okay, number one, awareness. Okay, we want to, I talk about this in every class, in every blog, in every video. Awareness of your thoughts is absolutely crucial. We have to have that awareness so that we can challenge it if it's negative, especially if it's not true. Okay, so, we have what works versus what doesn't work. And what you have to do first is when you're having awareness of your thoughts is, simple questions like, who am I and what do I believe and what am I thinking right now and what's working for me and getting to my goals and what's not. As soon as I start working with a new client, I always dig into this. What is working for you so far? We do the post-competition assessments of what has worked well in the skater's training, thoughts, emotions, and what's not working. How can we tweak this? How can we make it better? Instead of punishing ourselves for not doing well, you want to look at it and assess it and look at where it can be improved. And you'll find if you look back, some people say, oh, I've never done anything well. Well, that's not true. I'm sure that everybody can look back at some point in something that they've done where they've accomplished. They've gone from a waltz jump to an axel, from a single toe to a double toe. They've accomplished this skill, that spin. There's something that you have accomplished. And so focusing on your accomplishments, focusing on what you've proven to yourself that you have done, helps you to transition from that negative thought maybe into a neutral thought that's just a truth, right? Or even then up to that positive. So it's really important to catch those negative thoughts, and awareness is what allows that to happen. And then you need to start asking the questions, asking yourself those questions. Oh, I can't, or oh my gosh, why me? These aren't the best kind of questions. These aren't what I'm talking about. They're not the nice questions. Those are those mean girl or mean boy questions. You want to ask yourself, what can I do? What have I been able to do in the past? How can I do this next skill? Those are the questions that you want to start asking, because then that sets you up to a plan of action. Well, how can I do this next skill? Well, I break the skill down. I start in progressions. I start building some confidence on the little parts of the skill, and then I start adding on, and then I can go to the big skill because I have built confidence up from the smaller portions, chunks of that skill. And you shift away from fear. You shift to action. You shift to, what am I going to do? What's going to help me? And that takes the brain out of that fight or flight, and it brings you into that action mode. It's excitement. Oh, okay, if I do this and I get moving on that and I start working my way up through here, I can see how I'm going to get to my goal. And then there's, stick to the facts, right? Our mind can go to those what ifs, and I'll never be able to do it. Well, how do you know never? We can't think in the future. We don't read minds. We're not able to tell the future. So, that's just an assumption. And you don't know if that assumption is true or not. So we need to stick to the facts. What am I capable of doing right now? What do I need to do each day? What are my process goals? What do I need to do in order to move forward in this skill? Instead of going to that worst case scenario. I'm terrible. I'll never be able to do it. I'm too scared to do it. That's just a downward spiral of negativity that, of course, is going to stand in your way and stop you from doing the skill. And, it's not always possible to jump right to a positive affirmation of what you can do, or a positive reframe. Sometimes you got to go to the neutral, right? Just that basic truth of, what we call the fact zone, staying in that fact zone. It could be like, well, I know how to fall safely. I've done this similar skill before, or this skill. I have time. I don't need to have this jump absolutely landed today. I can work through the progressions and the smaller skills and work my way up to this. That's not way out there in positivity zone, where you're like, I'm the best, I can do it. But it's just in fact, right? Most skaters, if you've gotten up to and you're starting to jump, you know how to fall. And the last one is, focus on the progress. When you focus on the progress, you're not focusing on the outcome, you're not focusing on perfection, you're just focusing on what you can do right now, the day-to-day movement forward. And to remember, going from point A to point B, there's a lot of steps in between. And if we stay focused in those steps of getting better, of improving, moving forward in a skill, then you're staying in the present. And there's no fear when you're focused in the present. Fear comes when you start thinking about the what ifs. What if I fall? What if I hurt myself? What if I embarrass myself? Or, I've seen somebody fall on this before, those past experiences. But if we think straight in and focus on what we're doing, there is no fear in that moment other than what we choose to bring to it. Okay? And lastly, celebrate these small wins. Celebrate the small wins so that when we are checking off all our accomplishments. Okay, each time you check off an accomplishment, that's an endorphin rush. That's a little congratulations that you give yourself for meeting a goal, meeting an accomplishment, and that is money in the bank. That is filling up your confidence bank, like we talked about last week. So I hope that you've all found something here that you can take with you and try out. You can please let me know. Email me, put it in the comment boxes, things that you've tried out, what works for you, what doesn't. You know, and if you have any questions, please make sure to send them to me so that we can discuss them next week. And if you want to learn more, of course, remember you can contact me at Christine@figureskatingtraining.com or go to the website www.figureskatingtraining.com, and lots of information there for you, blogs and other things that can give you tips and help you. So thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a great evening, and remember to skate happy and get your mental toughness reps in. Have a wonderful evening.